recording now.
Hello, everyone. Mike Hoffs, voice of the New Orleans Saints, here for another From the Press Box. After the Saints go up to Landover, Maryland, and beat the Washington football team 33-22 to get to 3-2 on the season and a much-needed, well-deserved off week before they go back on the road to play Seattle. Seattle will play this week. They are not open. Seattle plays, and they'll be without Russell Wilson. They'll be in Pittsburgh, and then the big Monday night affair with the Saints in a couple of weeks. But that's a couple of weeks. I digress. A interesting game from the outset for New Orleans. 2 turnovers in their first 10 plays. I think unquestionably we will sit here on a Monday and go, Blake Gillikin is the NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. Be done with it. Go ahead and just give it to him now, because I don't know of a punter who could have played a more significant role in scoring than Blake Gillikin. Let's bring in Jeff Nowak, our digital producer with WWL AM. And Jeff, like you and I were talking before, it was just, I thought the Giants game was a kind of a wacky game, and this one topped it in many, many aspects.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the first quarter. You had 3 possessions on offense, interception, which, you know, when you look at the replay, you can't pin on Jameis Winston because Andrews Peak got driven back into him. You can see him actually step on his foot, which explains why he wasn't able to get it out as far as he wanted to. Then the next possession, 72-yard touchdown to Deontay Harris, who then leaves the game with an injury, you know, a few drives later. And then the next possession, a fumble. So, I mean, this is a game that the Saints, if not for that massive touchdown, could have been down, you know, 2-3 scores in the first quarter. And right, in the end,
defense. Defense, right? Out of all that, they're leading 7-6. Defense gives up field goals instead of touchdowns. That's huge to come out of that sequence of bad play to be leading 7-6 with that 172-yard touchdown to Deontay, just like the Giants the week before. A couple of plays, 2 9-second drives while the Saints have the ball the whole time. So, I mean, it's just it's a victory, and there are many, many good things, but it was just weird.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this a little before coming on. You know, this drastic difference between the Washington football team's red zone efficiency and the Saints' red zone efficiency really all season, you know, is outside of Blake Gillikin, obviously, is the story of that game. I mean, you had those big touchdowns, but then you had Washington with the ball the entire game, settling for field goals. Meanwhile, the Saints, possibly because they don't think they can kick a field goal, you know, they're not even considering it. I mean, Cody Parkey missed 2 extra points in the second half. Blake Gillikin actually kicked off twice, which I didn't even notice at the time because they went for touchbacks, and, you know, you just start the next possession. But, you know, it's wild to see a team this good on special teams, but also this bad at a very important aspect of special teams, which is why what Blake Gillikin was able to do on those 3 punts specifically is remarkable. He put 3 punts inside the 3. That doesn't happen. And they led directly to points. You know, you don't often see a punter actively putting points on the board, but essentially that's what happened. You don't get that chance at a Hail Mary if it's not for that punt inside the 1. Because they weren't even able to take any time off the clock. They had to basically just go in a shell, and the Saints get it back, and that turned the game around. I mean, it was 13-13 at that point. That's huge.
No, I agree. You're talking about red zone efficiency. The Saints are 13 of 14 in the red zone, and Washington yesterday on goal to go. So first and goal, they're 2 of 4. That's brutal, and that played a big role. But you're right. Blake Gillikin, the NFL keeps the stats inside the 20. He's like, inside the 20? Are you kidding me? Inside the 5, right? And so inside 2 of them, you know, and you rarely in this day and time see a punter angle for the sidelines anymore. It's always the backwards kick, kicking on the toe of the football. But the first one on the 1, then the 3, those 2, and then also one of the punts was down by Ty Montgomery. But that ball landed so softly, it just kind of lofted up into the air for Ty to make the play. Ty Montgomery's done a great job on special teams. But you're right. I've never, other than a punter who might throw the ball and be, you know, accountable for points, Blake Gillikin was just astronomical. And his punting all year has been very solid. He's not like he's punting 35 yarders. I think what was his average yesterday? I wrote it down.
50.
Like it was 54.2, we'll say, his average, and his net was 52 point something. So 2 yards was the average net. So he's done a great job. And you're right about time of possession. It's really kind of a little misleading because the Saints won the fourth quarter, kept the ball in the fourth quarter. So it was 36 for Washington, 23 and change for New Orleans. But in the first 3 quarters, New Orleans went 423, 606, 312. That's how much they had the ball. The third quarter, they ran like 10 plays, got 18 yards. They're very fortunate that their defense kept them in the game, that their special teams kept them in the game. And when they needed to this week, offensively, make the play, make the first down, get the score. They did the things this week they did not do last week against the Giants, and that's the difference in the game.
Right, yeah, and as you mentioned, Blake kind of broke out the pitching wedge on that third one, which you're going to start seeing guys field the ball inside the 10-yard line if that's the alternative. And they had a chance at a safety on that second punt too. Taylor Heineke ended up saving it, but there was a bad snap at the goal line.
Oh yeah,
and I mean that results in a safety maybe 8 times out of 10 probably. So I mean, even with those 2 punts that led directly to Marquez Callaway touchdowns, he also had one where it probably should have got a safety. So I mean, even there, it was remarkable. I kind of lost my train of thought here. What was I going to say?
Oh yeah, I feel this is a results business, and it is what it is.
Right.
I've never felt so poorly for a kid than Cody Parkey. I feel bad for him. I don't know him. He's a smart guy. I hope whatever happens to him happens to him. But when he missed the first extra point, he came out onto the field by himself and just stood at the middle of the field waiting to kick. Now the team's over on the sideline. This is before he, doinked it. And I was just like, gosh, I was like, they got to get this kid up because they may need him. This was early in the game. That was the first missed extra point.
Right.
And then when he doinked the second one, I was like, I think I said on the air, I was like, I'm not kidding you. Like I didn't think it was possible. I feel, it is what it is. I just feel bad for the kid.
Yeah, it's a tough situation to be in. I mean, signing somewhere midweek, you don't have to learn a playbook per se, but it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure. And I don't think Saints fans really had the true appreciation for Will Lutz until what we saw the first 5 weeks.
Well, I think they're going to carry Will Lutz out to the field and say, "Look, we'll hold you here. One guy holds your leg back. Just sweep it through."
He's going to get the next statue outside the stadium. But no, I think the really interesting thing about this game is it went very, very similarly to the Giants game in Week 4, with the exception being, when Washington, I almost said the wrong name, when Washington went down the field and
$20 in the jar, baby.
Yeah, right. That's a steep swear jar. When they went down the field,
we only played one time, so I was okay.
There you go.
Washington, the radio team for the team, they did it all for the last 2 years. So, but they never said it. They never said it. In 2 years, they've not said it. I said it twice in one game.
Well, there you go. You're donating to the Washington football team renaming fund.
No, I'm donating to the Louisiana Relief Fund. That's what
there you go.
That's what.
Oh no, but what I was saying is, this game went remarkably similar to the Giants game last week. But you saw, just how narrow of margin you have to win that game when you're trying to come back. The Washington didn't get the 2-point conversion, and that changed the entire outlook. The Giants did. The Giants threaded the needle, and that's not going to happen most weeks. And that's what the Saints team is really banking on. They're going to play close games with the game plan that they established and by relying on the defense to stand up in those situations. They didn't in Week 4. They did in Week 5. And that's, those are kind of the rhythms you're going to get. I thought the offense was a lot more productive today in terms of being aggressive. Even Jameis only completed 50% of his passes, but you could tell they were trying to push the ball more. And, hopefully down the road, as you get guys back, you're not playing on these razor thin margins like they have been the last few weeks.
Right. The Washington football team, like the Saints a week ago, had 43 plays that they ran past midfield. 43 plays and scored 22 points. New Orleans ran 15 plays past midfield. That's it. The whole game, 15 plays past midfield. The biggest difference is if you look at what are explosive plays, 20-plus plays, passing and rushing. The Saints go into yesterday with just 3 plays of 20 plus, and they were passes, no runs of 20 plus yesterday. And that's through 4 games. Yesterday they had 5, 5 of plus 20, and then another one of plus 19. So almost 6. They literally almost doubled their output of what the NFL calls explosive plays in one game. And that's the difference. I mean, that's the ability to score from quickly, score, from different distances. And the Marquez Callaway play before half that Gillikin set up. I've never seen a Hail Mary. First off, I think, and I'm not speaking for Washington, they didn't look very prepared. I thought it might be a quick out and then a long field goal try. So I was kind of mentally not thinking, because they didn't set up for it. It wasn't set up for, quad or trips right. And so Jameis threw the ball so high. I don't think I've ever seen a Hail Mary that just went so high. It was only 48 yards, but it went directly up. And Marquez Callaway cradled it. He didn't reach up at the peak with his hands and catch it. He was able to cradle it with no opposition. I don't know if Washington was ready or whatever, but that was the worst. Great play by Callaway. Worst defensive Hail Mary output, on a play that they didn't even do anything. They didn't even try to stop it.
Yeah, no, this was talked about a lot after the game. There's a post up on Audacy.com/WWL, which kind of breaks down what everyone had to say from, Kamara watching on the sideline to Sean, first off, the interviews after wins are a completely different experience from interviews after losses. You have Sean up there talking about Sugarland and a conversation with Jennifer Nettles about having to come out and do a halftime show after a Hail Mary from the other team, which was in reference to the Terrence Copper in 2006. But, what I found interesting and what happened in the game is, and Ron Rivera kind of echoed this, was the Washington was expecting that quick out. They were expecting a short pass to set up maybe a field goal, to set up, maybe a shorter Hail Mary where you can run a real play. And instead, what Sean Payton said the Saints were going for was, we want 2 Hail Marys. We want 2 shots at this. They had 8 seconds, and I couldn't tell you whether the ball would have landed in time to get another shot at it, but that's why it seemed like they caught Washington off guard, because they did. They ran the Hail Mary on that first play thinking, okay, if the ball gets knocked down, we might get 2 shots at this, and we're going to force them to do it again. And this is a play they practice. Callaway said that they switch off week to week, offense to defense. One week it's the offense jumping to go get the ball. The next week it's the defense jumping to work on knocking the ball down. And you saw they ran it to perfection. Jameis said the goal is to throw the ball as high as you can, put it about 4 yards in the end zone, and just let the guys go up and try to get it. And that's exactly what he did. You're not targeting a player on that throw. You're targeting a spot. And it worked out perfectly. And, that type of play changes a game. And it changed this game.
Yeah, if that was the plan, I would have Jameis maybe throw it a tad lower, just because it had great hang time. If you try to get 2 plays off, but right. it was perfect. I mean, it was the way the pass was thrown and Callaway going up to get it. And you're right. Instead of 13 all at the break, I believe it was 20-13. Yep. And the Saints needed it. They needed that cushion, every bit of it, because they just did not play well in the third quarter. And then it became 2016, and you knew this was going to come down to which team in the fourth quarter would make the play, and the Saints defense did it all game. And I talked about this during the week, and that Taylor Heinicke is going to beat you. He's going to try to beat you with his legs, and he was very effective with his legs, but he's young, and he's going to make some bad decisions. He made some bad decisions in Atlanta, and for whatever reason, they didn't pick it off. And he made some terrible decisions in this game, and the Saints made him pay almost every time. In fact, it could have been a 5 or 6 interception game. Marshawn Lattimore and a lot of players, it could have been easily a 5 or 6 interception game. But his poor decisions, Taylor Heinicke yesterday, cost them dearly, because the Saints defense made the play and made him pay for those decisions.
Yeah, you had interceptions from P.J. Williams, which was after that punt that we were talking about, and then the Callaway touchdown. You had an interception from Paulson Adebo at the 2-yard line, 1-yard line, which was massive because it literally took points off the board. That's a 7-point play.
And they were just bad passes. They were just bad passes.
It was a bad decision.
You got to make him pay when he makes a mistake. And it was a mental mistake. They were both underthrown. Some of his passes across the middle that Marshawn knocked down were underthrown or a tad behind. But I'm not taking anything away from Marshawn Lattimore. He was a blanket on Terry McLaurin.
I think he had something like 7 pass breakups. And he said after the game, he was asked if like the hand injury was affecting him. And he said yes, because he's dropping interceptions because of the brace on his hand. He said he should have had 2 or 3, and he didn't get them. But yeah.
It was a big one. So the Saints are off this week. I've never been fond of a bye. It's not really a bye. They just don't play. But we had talked earlier in the season whether this would be a good time or a bad time. It is a great time. The Taysom Hill situation, Deontay situation, Dwayne Washington. I know Andres Pete got hurt, but he came back. This team mentally and physically needs a break, and they'll get one this week prior to playing again on the road at Seattle. And then it's a more typical schedule the rest of the way, where it's 2 games home, 2 games away, 2 games home. But just the fact that you're saying a sentence, 2 games home, sounds pretty good. And we're going to talk all about it tonight with head coach Sean Payton. It's the Saints Coaches Show, 6:30 to 7:30, all along the Saints Network. Talk about what a huge, huge victory yesterday was to get that victory over an NFC team, to get to 3-2, to get to that open week on a high note, get some time off and get ready for a Russell Wilson-less led Seattle game. And as we all know, very, very tough place to play. So join us tonight, 6:30 to 7:30. Sean Payton will be, of course, the head coach will be the guest. And I believe we're having offensive coordinator Pete Carmichael. So great show tonight, 6:30 to 7:30 on the New Orleans Saints Radio Network.